Alright, this is your second review video for Unit 6 data. We're going to start with pie charts. So we're going to first look at one that's got the numbers rather than the values. So if we're looking at this, we want to find the percentage of each sale. So this is the total number of sales for ice cream. So we have to add them together. 19 plus 10 is 29, plus 8 is 37, plus 11 is 48, plus 2 gives me a total of 50. So remember, when we're calculating percentages, it's part to whole. So the part is 50, and for chocolate we have 10, which is 1/5, which is equivalent to 0.2, which is 20%. Vanilla is 19 out of 50. When I divide that on a calculator, I get 0.38, which gives me 38%. Excuse me, my dog is running circles around me. Callie, stop. Callie,
Callie, come here.
strawberry is 2 out of 50, which if I type that in a calculator is 0.04, which is 4%. Now we're going to go backwards and look at one that has the percentages. And this one is about favorite subjects in school. So instead of having to calculate part to whole, they give us the percentage. We want to find how many exactly there were. So the key is that 3,548 students were polled. So first I want you to pause the video and see if you can figure out how many students chose math as their favorite subject. Right? When we're calculating this, we take the percentage, which is 20%, and we convert it to a decimal by moving it to the right, too. So I get 0.2, and I want to multiply by the total, which is 3,548. And I get my calculator up. Point 2 times 3,548. Which gives me a total of 709.6, so approximately 710 students. Do the same thing for social studies. So you're going to do 0.24 because it's 24% times the total students. And that gives me 851.52, so approximately 852 students. Which two subjects are about the same? That looks at the size of each pie chunk. So it looks like social studies and science are approximately the same. And then the last one is which one is the favored. And if you look, you see social studies is the biggest. So that would be the biggest. Now we're going to move on to stem and leaf. Alright. So we're going to look at this one. It's already created for me. So when we create a stem and leaf, you first want to, step 1, order your data. Step 2, you have to title it. Step 3 is make a key. So my key over here is 1-2 means 12 years old. Because this is the data that represents my family, ages of my family members. Okay. Next thing, all of your stems should be your tens digits. So notice I have to go all the way from 0 to 6. I can't skip any. So even though no one was in the 50s, I can't just not write 5. I have to write it in order. And then the leaves are my ones digits. So I just want to take a look and make sure you're okay with making this. The next question is how many values are on the graph. All you're going to simply do is count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12, 13. So I have a total of 13 family members included in this. And then again, when I ask you to calculate a percent, it's part to whole. The whole is 13. We want to know how many are older than 30. So I have to look at where 30 is. And no one's 30, so I don't have to worry about that. So then I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I get 8 out of 13, which is 62%. Now I'm going to give you one that's already created and ask you to find a bunch of values. So I want you to take the second, pause the video, and see if you can find the mean, mode, range of this from the stem and leaf. So to find the mean, you're going to take 19 plus 30 plus 32 plus 33 and so on. All of these values. Remember, don't just type 9 plus 2. It's 19, 30, 32. And then you're going to divide it by the total. When you do that, you should get a mean of 39.55. Mode is the most common occurring, so I look and I see there's 3 37s, not 7s, 37s. There's 3 40s, and there's 3 50s. So the mode is all three of those, 37, 40, and 50. The range, remember, is the max minus the min. So in this case, that's 50 minus 19, which gives me 31. The minimum is the smallest one, which is 19. And the max is 50. So I'm going to use that to calculate the rest of these. So first I'm going to calculate the median. The way I do that is I just cross out. So pairs. So there's my first pair. There's my second pair. Third. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. Seventh. And notice it ends up being between 40 and 40. Well, that means that the median is 40. Next step, I need to find, so it's right in between these two. All right. Next step, I need to take the lower half and find Q1. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use green instead and cross out pairs only on the lower half. So notice it's between 4 and 5, so 34 and 35, so Q1 is halfway between that, which is 34.5. And do the same thing with Q3, except I want the upper half now, so and this is between 45 and 49. Directly between that is 47, so there's my Q1. And then we have this funny thing called the IQR. The IQR is the interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, which is 47 minus 34.5. Which gives me 12.5 for my IQR. Right? Now we're going to use that to create a box and whisker. Hold on. All right, so I'm just going to plot my minimum, which is 19. Approximately, if I can get my thing to work. 19 is approximately there. I'm going to plot my median at 40. Oh gosh. I'm going to plot my max at 50, and then I need to plot my Q1 and my Q3. So Q1 is approximately there. Q3 is approximately there. These two create my whiskers. And then the box goes from Q1 to Q3. And then don't forget to draw a line in your box for the median. So there's my box and whisker plot. Now we're going to move on to histograms. So here's a histogram of various hats owned by Arndale students. Okay, so the number of hats. So 3 people own between 0 and 2 hats. 5 people own between 2 and 4 hats. Looks like 4 people own between 4 and 6. 2 people, 0 people, and 1. Now remember that it's not really that they own 2 in this. And remember, it always goes to the right, so that boundary point always is in the bin to the right. So how many students are represented? I just add these up. So 3 plus 5, 8, 12, 14, 15 students are represented. How many students own fewer than 4 hats? So that would be anything this way. So that would be a total of 8. How many students own more than 6? I know I should write own 6 or more. Not more than 6. 6 or more hats. So that'll be anything going this way. So it's 2, 0, 1. So 3 students. Do any students own 8 or 9 hats? And the answer would be no, because there's 0 between 8 and 9. Remember, 10 falls into the bin to the right, so we can answer that. All right, I want you to pause the video now and see if you can answer the questions about a different histogram, and they're very similar. One thing to point out is that we can label it with just numbers. So 0 to 2 means that in this first bin it's 0, 1. Then it's 2, 3, and then 4, 5. Or we can write it as intervals like they have on this one. So pause the video, see if you can answer these questions. First step would always be to write how many are in each frequency, in each bin. because I can guarantee you the first question is always going to be how many people are represented. You just add it up. 2, 3, 7, 12, 16, 17 people are represented. How many people inaugurated were over the age of 55? So this is the age of inauguration. So we're over the age of 55, which means, and again, I should write this as 55 or older, or 55 or more. Okay, so if I look this way, I have 5, 9, 10. How many people were under the age of 50? So I look this way. There's only 3, 2, and 1. So 3. How many people inaugurated were over 70? And we can't tell that. And remember, I can never ask you what's the minimum age because you cannot tell what this bin has in it. You just know that it's somewhere between 40 and 44. All right, now we're going to move on to box and whisker plots. So I want you to pause the video and try to write down what makes the 5-number summary. Okay, what values do you need to find if I ask you to find the 5-number summary? And then looking at this box and whisker, find the range and the IQR. Okay, so this is part 1 of your 5-number summary. It's the min. Then you have Q1, quartile 1. Then you have the median, Q3, and the max. So if I ever ask you to find the 5-number summary, you should be finding the min, Q1, median, Q3, and the max. Remember, the range is the maximum minus the minimum. In this case, the max is 15, the min is 1, so the range is 14. And remember, the IQR is Q3, it's just the box part, minus Q1, just what's in the box, which is 10 minus 3, which gives me 7. Right? Pause the video, see if you can answer this question. Given the 3 statements, find out which box and whisker those 3 statements best represent. So about 50% of the students received a score above 75, which means your median has to be 75 because your median splits the data 50-50. So if I look at this one, the median is clearly not at 75. That one could be about 75. That one could be, and that one could be. Okay? About 25% of the students scored at least 65. Okay? So we have to look and see 25% scored at least 65. So I look for 65, and that should be my Q1 because right here is 25% of the students. Oops, I think that should say 75%. So we want our Q1 to be 65 because this whole chunk up here is 75%. And this little guy down here is 25% of the data. Okay? So notice here, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because at least 25% of the students scored below a 58, it looks like. So that one's no good. And this one looks like our Q1 is at 65, so we have 2 left in the running. And then at least 1 person got 100%. That means our max is 100. So I look here and my maximum is not at 100, so the correct one must be this one right here. Right? Next one says which data set matches the box plot. So instead of giving you statements, I'm going to give you the box plot and say which data set represents it. So I want you to pause the video and see if you can point out which one does that. Alright, so I'm going to first find the median of these, each one. Actually, the first thing I would do before we go to the median is look at the max and the min. This one doesn't work because the max looks like it's 80, not 75, so that one wouldn't work. And the rest of them are okay. So now I have to look at the mins, and it looks like the minimums are all 30, so that won't help me. So now I need to go to find the median. So the median of this one is 52. That looks good. And the median of this one is 52. That looks good. This one is 50. The median is not 50, so I can rule out C, and I've already ruled out A. Next thing I need to find is Q1 and Q2. So if that's my median, Q1 and Q3. Q1 is 44 of this one, and Q1 is 40 of this one. So 40 is not one that works. It looks like Q1 is 44. So the correct answer would be B. Hey, I want to point out again quickly that 25% of the data is up to Q1. Another 25% of the data is right here in before the median. Another 25% of the data is here, and another 25% is here. So if they ask you, and they may ask questions like, what percent of the data is inside the box? The total box is 50%. Remember, on both sides of the median is 50%, okay? Q1 splits at 25-75. Q3 also splits at 25-75. So every time you see a box and whisker, it might be helpful to label it with the percentages so you can see where it actually falls. Right? We already did one like this, so I'm going to skip that one and move on to this last one where we have to find the mean, median, mode, and range. I know you're all capable of doing this, so go ahead and pause the video and calculate that. The median looks like is 38. I don't see any repeated values, so there's no mode. And the range, remember, is the max minus the min, which is 58 minus 14. And that gives me 44. And I'm going to leave you guys to find the mean. If you have questions on that, please ask. You're just going to add up 14 plus 35, 37 plus 38 plus 39 plus 40 plus 58, and then divide that all by how many values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I don't have a calculator handy, so we're going to leave it at that. We're going to move on to creating data sets now. So we have 5 values. The median is 50, the mode is 20, and the mean is 46. So I'm going to put in 50 right away because I know the middle or the median is 50. I know the mode's 20, which is less than 50, and if it's going to have a mode, that means it needs to repeat twice. Right, and the last thing is the mean is 46, which means when I add this up plus 2 other values and divide it by 5, it better equal 46. So in other words, 20 plus 20 plus 50 plus my 2 other numbers has to equal 46 times 5, which gives me 230. So I get 90 plus 2 other numbers has to equal 230. So my 2 numbers, I'm running out of space, has to equal 140 because 230 minus 90 is 140. So I cannot, the only 2 numbers I cannot pick are 70 and 70 because I cannot have another mode. So I could pick 60 and 80 as my 2 numbers. Or I could pick 65 and 75. Anything that adds to 140 would have it right. Right, the last one I want you to do then is find x that makes the median of the data set 30. So, first step, you want to order your data. We know the median is going to occur between these two, so I'm going to put the biggest one here and the smallest one here. Okay, our median is 30, which means 28 has to come first because it's smaller. And then we know that right in the middle of these two numbers has to be 30, so the way I do it is I say from 28 to 30, that's plus 2. So to make it equal, I have to add 2 to the other side, so my other one has to be 32, because directly between 28 and 32 is 30, so the median would be 30. All right, this last chunk is quick. I know the video is getting long, so which measure of spread is will be affected most by an outlier? And that would be the mean. If I were to go back up here, I forgot to answer this, so we're going to go back to this question. What's that? Okay, we'll go back to this one and talk about why. So if I look at this, which data value is an outlier? And I look at my numbers and I clearly see that 14 is way smaller than the rest of them. So I'm going to calculate the mean. So the mean was originally 37.285. and the median was originally 38. Now without that, if I recalculate the median without that data value, it would be 38.5 for the median. I'm going to recalculate the mean without that though. So what I'm going to do is add 35 plus 37 plus 38 plus 39 plus 40 plus 58 and divide by 6 now because I took out that value. And I get a mean of 41.17. So if you look at which value is changed the most, the mean has gone up about 5 or 4, and the median has only gone up by 0.5. So when you have an outlier, the value that's going to be most affected is the mean. The median will change slightly, but the mean is what's going to matter most. Okay? Alright, so the last thing is, why is this graph misleading? This pie graph is clearly skewed. 50% looks right, but 20% and 10% do not make up the other 50%. So it doesn't add to 100%. And the pie is obviously skewed because 20% is not looks like a quarter on this graph. Right, and then this graph, why is this graph misleading? You look at brand A versus brand B, and it looks like it's more than double, but if you look at the actual values, it's about 79 and 86. It's not actually double, so they're trying to get you to think that brand B is double in size to brand A, but that's not the case. And that isn't true because if you look at this, they jumped a big chunk at the scale, so it doesn't work out that way. Right, and the last question, a website asked every third visitor to complete a survey about internet usage. They conclude that 80% of their visitors use the internet at least 5 hours a day. Why would this be biased? Well, number one is it's a website. If they're asking a person who's on a website about internet usage, they're probably more likely to use the internet. So they should have asked people in a different method, such as by phone or in person, because there are likely to be people out there that don't use the internet. I know that you guys don't think that's probably true, but there are still people out there that do not use the internet. So they cannot ask a survey about internet usage through the internet because it will be skewed. Alright, I hope you have answered a lot of your questions about data. Have a nice night.